Hey everyone, it's Winslow. As getting ready for part of the dragon fight, we are going to be raising up a number of Rexes, and I've actually done quite a bit of work off camera to get ready for this, and I'm going to go ahead and show you it all now. So what I had here was I got two wild tames, decent levels, but I was looking for specific stats on them. And this one that I found, this male, tamed out with, I was happy with the 35 and 31, the 35 health and the 31 damage, until I found her. The health on this one is terrible, but the melee damage tamed out at 45, which is that's huge for wild to come out with that. And you see they are indeed wild. They don't have ancestors. These are the ones that I caught. And then what I did was I bred them together. Eventually, I got a baby with the stats combined. We're going to look at her. She ended up with the 35 health and the 45 melee damage. So she's my baseline. And what I needed was then to get an appropriate male breeder with. But before I wanted to do that, I wanted to get the stats out that I didn't care about, which is the food, the oxygen, and the movement. Food isn't really going to matter because they're always going to be near a food source, near a food trough. Oxygen, these guys don't go in the water. So I don't care if they can breathe or not. And speed, their base speed is their base speed, no matter how many points to put into it. So those three, it's kind of like wasted levels. So what I did was I went out and got I like to call them stat dump, where I go out and tame and intentionally screw up the taming effectiveness so that they are at minimum level, which on these settings is 5. And what that does is that only gives them 5 levels of stats that they can use. I want it as low as possible with food, movement, and oxygen. Now this one ended up with 1 food. I'm okay with that 1 point. A level 5 Rex, when I'm trying to breed specifically for mutations, is just as valuable to me as a high stat. What I ended up doing was I bred them together enough times so that I ended up with my breeding pair with the offset stats. So then what I've got, male and female with the same stats. And they have the stats I want to keep, and they got rid of the stats I didn't want. So then what I'm doing is that I'm breeding these. I have them just set on breeding because I need multiple females, which my hatchery is picking up the eggs as they come out. Pull them out, and then I'm going to put them in the incubator because I'll be hatching them later. And I'm going to be keeping the females, the female eggs. Anything that is mutating at this point, I'm going to set aside just to verify the mutation. But slot 3 is a male egg, and we don't need any more males. So we're going to get rid of that. So this process here takes a bit of time, because then you have to have multiple females for your male to breed with. And I'm going to be funneling any and all mutations through the male of the line. I'm also going to be keeping the unmutated male in reserve in case a good mutation comes through and it happens to be a female. I can then breed those until I get a male with the mutations. There's a lot there's a lot to mutations, more than I'm going to be able to cover right now. Um, but you might be wondering, why did I intentionally lower their level in these select stats? The mutation cap. When you look at the ancestry for your creature, you will see mutations from the mother's line and mutations from the father's line. Ideally, you want all of the mutations to be passed down through the father. Depending on the mutation you get and the amount of time you want to put into it, you might be getting it on the mother's line, and that's when you have to kind of reverse your breed process until you get a mutated male. But you see that it's got a limit here of 20 for each side. Now, that is not a true, genuine limit to how many mutations that you can have. You can have as many mutations up to the dino level cap, which I want to say is, what is it? Like 450 on regular settings? 450 for the birth level? I'm not sure. I have to look that up. But basically, what I'm going to be doing is breeding these for damage. And what that's going to allow me to do is get the mutated damage stat number over time as high as possible. So with this, I basically have 200 to 300 levels of mutations that I can breed into this line, which is going to be such a significant increase to the base damage for these Rexes that they're going to be able to take on any boss fight with great ease. The reason why I hold those other levels out by removing, again, the food, the speed, and the oxygen is because that gives me more levels that I can then continue mutating beyond that 20 limit. Now, the 20 limit, once you hit 20 mutations on that side, it is going to be a lower chance that you're going to get a mutation. But we have some tools moving forward that make tracking and eventually forcing mutations pretty easy. The incubators do a really good job of displaying a lot of the egg stats, including if it's male or female, its raw stat numbers, its colors if you're looking for color mutations, and the number of mutations that the egg has on the mother or father's side. When it mutates, you gain +2 to the mutated stat. And then generally, there's also a color change that happens. So I'm going to go ahead and let this breed for quite a bit. And we'll check in when I've got a mutation, which might be a very long time. All right, so I've hatched and raised. I got 7 total females out of that. And then I've got my dude in the middle. And then all that I'm going to do now, they're all set to breed. Just make sure that all of their little hearts are going. He's getting all of them. And then we just wait. Eggs dropped. It will be picked up by the hatchery. Should be. Okay, all picked up. This one somehow they stopped breeding. Maybe it was when his animation was when he was pooping. pushed him out of alignment. But, you know, he was just in an orgy, so he's okay. All right. So I just want to make sure. Yep, got picked up. Okay. So that they all got picked up, and they are here. All 7 of them. And then I'm just gonna put them in the incubator. And we're gonna look at the stats. So any that are not mutated at this point are pointless, are worthless to us. That one goes. 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 One goes. And that one goes. So they're gonna all. None of these have a mutation. So they're all gonna be scrubbed. Now, one thing I could do is still incubate and hatch them and then kill them for experience. It's a good way to level up some tames or yourself. Get out. Which I might do. It'll get me plenty of meat and hide, and then I can actually use that to level up the megatheriums that I've got ready to go. So that's this part of it. And now all that I have to do is just wait. Their refresh timer for breeding is different between all of them for whatever reason. It gives a range. So they are roughly every 20 to 25 minutes with my settings, they're going to be breeding. So after a day of going out and adventuring or whatever I'm going to be doing, I'll have probably a full hatchery of eggs that I can put through the incubators to see if I've got any mutations. All right. So I had this running all day while at work. It went for about 7 hours. And let's just see where we are with it. I did get about 200 eggs, fertilized eggs total coming through. And I ended up with 4 fertilized eggs that I would be interested in. Now, there were about 10 or 12 total that did mutate, but they were mutations in the stats that I don't want. And most of them were oxygen. So I've got 2 different stamina. Nope, I've got a stamina one with a yellow mutation. We've got a health mutation. Yep, health with the white mutation. I've got the damage with, it looks like kind of a light yellow mutation. It's the damage one I want. And then another looks like another damage mutation. Yeah. With a different color. So these 2 I'm going to hatch, and we're going to see that's what they look like. So that's slots 3 and 4. And it is the easiest way to just verify when looking through the eggs that you've got the mutation is the level will go up by 2. And then once you see that the level's changed, you can then check to see what stat has changed. And on these, see how they've got the stat numbers listed? on the right. The one that mutated was the stamina mutation, and it's 2 higher than the other one. So while I do eventually want to have a health mutation, I don't really need the stamina mutation, but I'm going to hold on to this guy just for the future, just in case I decide to do some different lines. And it looks like the colors that they mutated with are not present on the bebes. So that means that they might not actually show up. But that's okay. Or they're so subtle, like this one has the slightly lighter underbelly. So I'm going to let these guys grow up, and then I will decide which one I want to carry on for the next stage of mutation. So we'll check in when that's ready. Okay, and they're all grown up and settled, and I've decided I'm gonna go ahead and use the male with the lighter green underbelly. We're gonna go ahead and bring him forward. And I'm gonna keep the base male with no mutations to the side. In case I get a female with the mutation I want to keep, I can do the reverse breeding process. I can just, instead of breeding through the blank females, I can breed through the blank male and get a male with the mutation. Uh, it it takes about the same amount of time and effort, but I like keeping them around reserve so that I don't waste a mutation when it comes in. Now all I gotta do is just get this guy into position here. Moving them is a bit like, it's a bit like driving a truck with a tow trailer in reverse. You just have to know your points of rotation. Okay. There. Okay. And then I'm just going to enable breeding on him just to make sure that he hits all 7, which he does. And then I'm going to hitch him so that he doesn't get knocked out of place. A Diplodocus came by earlier and bumped the other one and interfered with the process. And that is that. That's the whole process. Just rinse and repeat until you get as high as you want with your mutations. Now, once you've got the mutation line started and you are getting new eggs or babies that have the same mutation, so for me, I'm only going to be looking for melee mutations on this, you need to make sure that you're sticking with the same mutation. Otherwise, your mutation limit will start stacking exponentially. And that's when you'll see some dinos on other servers where their mutation level is in the millions, or if they flipped over, they're in the negative millions, and those are garbage. Those are worthless. They could have only 5 stat point increases, 5 or 10 stat point increases, but they'll have literally millions of calculation breaking mutations. You don't want to have those. You want to keep your lines clean and only breed for the stat you want through the line that you've created. And that is going to go ahead and wrap it up here for this video in Prove Your Worth. A little bit different than some of the other videos I've done in this series, but mutations and breeding is going to be a big part of the series later on and moving forward. And so I wanted to make sure that I set a baseline for doing that. There's a lot of really good videos that are available on YouTube. I'll link a couple up in the pins for more in-depth mutation guides if you're really interested in mutating. I want to say thank you to everyone who's watching the videos that I've been making lately. I greatly appreciate all of your support and the feedback that I've been getting. If you found this video helpful, please consider subscribing to the channel, leaving a like, or even comments down below, and sharing your thoughts about the video. I would greatly appreciate it. On the next video, I will be going after the dragon on Alpha, so we'll see just how successful all of my setup has been. Take care.